Jim Harbaugh still needs an offensive coordinator. He already secured a great defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter, an awesome strength and conditioning coach in Ben Herbert, who I freaking love that guy, man. And just last night, Joe Hortiz was brought in as general manager, so he has already built a very strong foundation for the Chargers, which has always been one of his strengths, identifying good assistant coaches for his staff. Will he be able to keep that trend of great hires going and get a good offensive coordinator? Well, there's not really a ton to choose from right now, but I do have a few names that are very, very possible here. So make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this content, bro. It helps me out so much. And let's bolt up. And my first target is David Shaw, the former Stanford head coach. And he was the son of an NFL coach and played wide receiver at Stanford under Dennis Green and Bill Walsh, which are two Super Bowl winning coaches, two very high esteemed coaches. Dennis Green is actually the guy who said this:
"The Bears are who we thought they were. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass."
And he coached at a bunch of different spots until he came back to Stanford in 2007 as the offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach. And he stayed there until he was named the head coach in 2011, the year after Jim Harbaugh left Stanford to coach the 49ers. And his coaching tenure started off great. 3 consecutive bowl games, including 2 Rose Bowl appearances and 1 Rose Bowl win in 2012. Then in 2015, they won the Rose Bowl again, which made David Shaw only the second coach in Stanford history to win 2 Rose Bowls. Then in 2017, he became the winningest coach in Stanford history. Since 2019, though, he didn't have that same success, and in his last 2 years, he finished 3-9 before resigning as head coach. He was the play caller during his time there, and he calls himself a West Coast offense purist, heavily influenced by John Gruden. Stanford would use multiple tight ends in a strong formation. They would run power, and they would do fake runs to make play action passes early on during his tenure as head coach. And if you don't know what a West Coast offense is, Steve Young basically called it the short passing game, replicating the efficiency and security of a running game. I think that's a very good explanation of what it is. And that's going to be the Chargers offense no matter who's the offensive coordinator. I just want to let everybody know that right now. And David Shaw would run 10 personnel, which is 4 wide receivers almost 33% of the time later on in his career in like 2020, 21. He ran a lot of zone and power running plays, but he was also really good at attacking the holes in a defense and using the defender's leverage to his advantage in the passing game. He uses a high percentage short passing game, but when he wants to attack downfield, he would often bunch their wide receivers in a formation and then cross their routes downfield so that it confuses the defense's zone coverage, and it would often result in somebody wide open, typically up the seam, but sometimes on the outside towards the sideline. I really like David Shaw a lot. He's my number 2 guy, but Richard Sherman, he likes him a lot too. He wanted David Shaw to be the head coach, man. Now, really quickly, I want to talk about Pep Hamilton because he's another Stanford guy with Jim Harbaugh and then later followed him to Michigan. He also was the quarterback's coach during Justin Herbert's rookie year, which was his highest QB rating of his career. I love Pep Hamilton, and he would be my number 1 guy, but I think it's interesting that there have been no reports at all of him coaching with Jim Harbaugh in LA when the connection is so easily there. Anyone can make that connection, especially because he didn't have a coaching job this past season. So to me, something is off. And on top of that, I even got a comment on one of my videos where I talked about wanting Pep Hamilton as the offensive coordinator, and someone commented saying they have a connection to Pep Hamilton and said that he didn't like coaching under Jim Harbaugh. I take that for what you will. I actually believe this guy because there have been 0 reports of him being on the staff, whereas we have gotten tons of reports of guys like Greg Roman, Jay Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, who's now been hired, and Ben Herbert, who's now been hired. All of those guys have been reported to be on that staff. If it happened, I would love for Pep Hamilton to be the offensive coordinator. Like I said, he would be my number 1 guy, but it just feels like something is off. And then when you look at that comment and you read it, I mean, it makes sense for it to be true. So I wouldn't get my hopes up here, but oh my God, I would love this. So, like I said, there have been reports of Jim Harbaugh wanting Greg Roman to be on his Chargers staff in some capacity, and it would make the most sense, I think, for him to be the offensive coordinator. A lot of you guys don't want that to happen. I'm not too gung-ho about it either. He was the 49ers offensive coordinator with Jim Harbaugh, but they never finished top 10 in offense during his tenure. And then his last job was with the Ravens as offensive coordinator for Lamar Jackson from 2019 to 2022. He started off great, man. The best offense in the NFL with 33.2 points per game, but got worse every single year after that. And in his final season, 2022, they only had 20.6 points per game, which was 19th in the NFL. And his downfall was not being able to pass the ball to go along with his ability to run the ball at such a high level, man. I mean, he had Lamar Jackson. You can run the ball really well with him, but he also had some questionable play calls, specifically in the red zone, where his offense was 30th in the NFL in 2022. I mean, listen, bro, for an offense that is so dominant running the football, you would think they have no problem in the red zone, but they were one of the worst in the NFL. And they also had a lot of injuries. You know, J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson, Ronnie Stanley, Rashad Bateman, they all missed time that year. But still, it's not a good look. On the positive side, because listen, it's not all bad. In 2019 and 2020, his offenses were the only offenses in NFL history to make more than 3,000 rushing yards in a season. He did that 2 times. With all of that rushing success, he couldn't really ever get that passing game going, as the Ravens had the 3rd fewest passing yards in his last 3 years as offensive coordinator. It's been reported many times that Greg Roman will be on this staff with a job. Will it be the offensive coordinator job? I mean, I wouldn't prefer it, but what Jim wants is what Jim is going to get, bro. And although I would not be excited about this hire, I would understand it. And, you know, I would give Jim Harbaugh the benefit of the doubt. Now, my number 1 guy, not including Pep Hamilton, by the way, is Tanner Engstrand. And I did not think that this would happen because I was convinced that Ben Johnson would be the Commanders head coach. But it's now being reported that he's going to stay in Detroit to try and win a Super Bowl. And Adam Schefter even reported that his asking price was too high as well. Don't know for sure about that, but this is great news. And it's kind of bad news for the Chargers. Let me tell you why. Because now it means that my favorite target, Tanner Engstrand, who is the Lions passing game coordinator and elevated that Lions offense to new heights this year, he might be available to be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. But it's also bad news because now it's more likely that Mike MacDonald, the Ravens defensive coordinator, gets that head coaching job in Seattle, and he's likely going to be bringing a lot of the Ravens staff with him. So the Chargers aren't going to be getting anyone from that staff, most likely. I'd expect Chris Hewitt to be the defensive coordinator if Mike MacDonald gets hired by Seattle or maybe even Washington, which I feel like it's pretty likely to happen. And then Jesse Minter, he's going to have to fill out his defensive staff and fight over those guys with Mike MacDonald. But I think the good outweighs the bad here with this news, because Tanner Engstrand would be an amazing offensive coordinator hire for the Chargers. And that position is the most important one to fill right now, rather than the other remaining positions in the defensive staff. Because we already have our defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter. Tanner Engstrand had Jared Goff as the 2nd most productive quarterback in the NFL, a rookie tight end in Sam Laporta with the most touchdown passes caught in the NFL, and a top 5 producing wide receiver in the NFL with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, listen, his style of offense fits what Jim Harbaugh wants, and the Lions are the same brand of tough and physical football, so he would be a great fit. He's the passing game coordinator right now, but that passing attack, it works so cohesively with their running game, and they dial up plays at a perfect time, and they're able to have success in the short passing game and the deep passing game, unlike Greg Roman. Tanner is my number 1 guy, and I think he deserves this offensive coordinator job. I think it is possible to secure him and take him away from the Lions. He coached with Jim Harbaugh a long time ago in San Diego, and then again in Michigan, and hopefully now he will come back as the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles for Justin Herbert. And if you didn't see my video yesterday, I was talking about Joe Hortiz, the Chargers' new general manager. I love this guy.